One of the YouTube shorts I recently posted has gained quite a few views, but it's come with a lot of the same comments. And it's not just my video. There is a Reddit thread and TikTok video with over 1,000 comments of people sharing similar experiences, swearing that hamsters only have horrific deaths. But why do so many people have these stories in the first place? Let's talk about it. Let's clear something up right away. Hamsters are not trying to kill themselves. They do not purposely put themselves in danger. Most animals don't try to put themselves in danger. When someone says, my hamster just leapt from this ledge, or they just jumped out of my hands for no reason, if we do just a little bit of research, we can learn that hamsters have poor depth perception, and that jumping is a natural instinct for a prey animal who's trying to escape something that may be scary to them. When I started to read through these comments on that Reddit thread, I started to recognize a lot of patterns with these stories. And most of these hamster deaths aren't exactly random. My hamster sneezed itself to death. Hamsters don't just sneeze and then suddenly pass away. Frequent sneezing could indicate that they're suffering from an upper respiratory infection, or they potentially have some allergies, and if left untreated, yes, could lead to death. But sneezing is the body's natural way of removing irritants from the nose, not a way of death. My hamsters killed each other. Hamsters are solitary by nature, and when housed with one another, it can lead to really serious injuries and, of course, even death. So the best way to prevent this is to keep hamsters housed individually and don't let them interact with each other. My hamster ate her babies. While yes, this is horrifying to witness, this is actually a survival instinct. Mother hamsters may cull their litter if they feel threatened, if they sense any illness in a pup, or if they're lacking the resources to fully care for the entire litter. And this behavior actually occurs in many other species, not just hamsters. My cat or dog ate my hamster. Hamsters are prey animals, and they shouldn't be interacting with any other species that you have in the household. If you want to have different species in the same household, it is super important that your hamster's enclosure is very secure and that it is out of reach of any larger animals. Responsible pet ownership includes keeping all of the species that you own in your household safe. My hamster fell down the stairs while it was in its ball. Unfortunately, pet stores do commonly sell hamster balls, but they are very disorientating and stressful to the hamster. They not only limit airflow, but they also can injure toes and feet. They can lead to injuries from collisions or falling downstairs, and they can also sometimes pop open, leading to an escaped hamster. Instead, use a secure playpen under supervision or free roam your hamster in a hamster-proofed room. That way you're actually giving your hamster a safer, more enriching activity. My hamster just died out of nowhere. Hamsters are prey animals, so we have to remember that they instinctively have to be very, very good at hiding illnesses and any sort of pain, because in the wild, if they show signs of illness and pain, that makes them a very easy target. Some owners may not know what exactly to look out for when it comes to detecting underlying conditions your hamster might be hiding. I think it's also worth mentioning that hamsters are mass bred all around the world in horrible conditions. This means that their genetics are not being considered, and oftentimes a hamster who looks physically healthy may not be physically healthy on the inside, which could often lead to a shortened lifespan. For example, heart disease is actually a really common ailment in hamsters, and the symptoms can be really, really hard to notice. And unfortunately, there is no cure for heart disease. There's only ways of managing it. So your hamster could pass from heart disease and you may have not even noticed. When I read those stories, a lot of those have the same thing in common, and that is just pure ignorance. And it's not meant in a negative way necessarily, it's just not enough people know better. Most of these horrific hamster death stories come down to two factors, but luckily there are steps that we can take to prevent these stories. Misinformation. New hamster owners are often set up for failure right from the start because of what the pet store sells and promotes. Hamsters are marketed as these easy, low-maintenance pets that often leads people to purchasing unsuitable enclosures and dangerous products. And lack of research can lead people to put hamsters in dangerous situations, such as housing them together. And factor number 2 is neglect and underestimation. Hamsters suffer simply because their needs are underestimated. Most of these stories that I've read are actually coming from adults who had hamsters as their childhood pet, where their parent had bought them a hamster and gave them sole responsibility over the living being. And in a lot of those cases, when a child is given sole responsibility and a parent is not overseeing the entire care process, oftentimes children will lose interest, they will forget to feed the hamster or even just keep up with keeping it clean. A lot of people don't even realize what proper enrichment looks like to a hamster, so then that leaves the hamster to being bored and constantly looking for ways to escape their enclosure, which then once they do escape, sometimes they often end up in tragic situations. People often fail to see hamsters as intelligent creatures, which I find hilarious because if they weren't super intelligent, they wouldn't be able to figure out how to easily escape their enclosures all of the time. So one of the biggest reasons that these stories exist in the first place is because people see hamsters as beginner pets for kids. If a child does get a hamster, an adult should be equally as involved in their care to ensure that pet's well-being. A hamster may be easier to care for than some other species out there, but they still require a lot of research on their needs, as well as their anatomy and even their body language. As someone who has had hamsters since I was 9 or 10 years old, I can definitely say that hamsters aren't always the best pet for children, and there's a couple of reasons why. The first thing is that hamsters are nocturnal, and this might not always match up with a child's sleep schedule. There are some hamsters who, yes, might wake up at 8 p.m., but there's also hamsters who are not going to be waking up until 1 a.m. And oftentimes, waking up a hamster during the day is going to lead to a pretty nasty bite at no fault of the hamster. Hamsters don't tend to be super cuddly animals. Yes, there might be times where your hamster will sit in your hand, but the likelihood of them coming up and cuddling with you and sitting in the same place the entire night is very unlikely. Hamsters are very high energy animals and they kind of are just always on the go. They want to explore all over the place. So if you're looking for a pet that's gonna just cuddle with you, it's most likely not gonna be a hamster. They also need patient handling, and for some younger kids, it might be hard to keep up with their fast-paced nature and their unpredictable movements. A lot of the people that do share these horrific hamster death stories, I don't think are intentionally trying to be harmful, and I don't think they realized that a lot of these stories could have been very easily preventable, but casually sharing those stories like that starts to make people assume that that is just a normal thing that comes with owning a hamster, when it's not. So if we share the right knowledge, we can hopefully shift the mindset around hamster care. Hamsters can live anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years, sometimes 3 to 4 years if they have good care and good genetics. And preventing these tragic stories is very easy. Provide your hamster with a proper setup. You're going to want to make sure you're providing your hamster with an adequate sized enclosure. Most of the in-store cages are not suitable for hamsters. You're probably going to have to order them online unless you are getting a 75-gallon or larger aquarium. You're also going to want to make sure that there is enough room for your hamster to burrow and they have lots of bedding, as well as there is lots to explore and they feel safe in their enclosure. Keep them safe. Learn what products are dangerous for your hamsters and make sure to remember that just because it says made for hamsters doesn't mean that it is safe for hamsters. It's always a good idea to just double check if you're not 100% sure. For example, pine and cedar shavings can cause upper respiratory infections, cotton fluff can cause internal blockages, and hamster balls can be extremely stressful. And monitor their health. Do research on the most common hamster ailments so that you know exactly what to look out for and when to see a vet. do weekly health checkups on them, as well as watch out for any subtle behavior changes because those can sometimes tell you that there's an underlying cause. Hamsters aren't just disposable pets. They are intelligent, curious, and full of personality. And their short lifespans shouldn't be an excuse to overlook their care. So by learning, sharing, and improving the way we care for our hamsters, we can help to ensure that fewer of these tragic stories are repeated. So I hope this video has been able to at least shed a little bit of light into this situation, because I have heard of people being too scared to get a hamster because they think these horrific death stories are just a normal part of hamster keeping when they're in fact not. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video. Bye!